Hello everyone, welcome to this short video from the Centre of Excellence in Child Trauma. My name is Sarah Naish and this is my daughter.
Hi, I'm Rosie Jefferies.
So today our video is just going to be covering the early days around adoption and fostering. So I'll be covering it from my perspective as an adopter and formal foster parent.
And I will be sharing my experience as a former child in care and an adoptee and Sarah's daughter.
Hopefully still my daughter.
Definitely.
We're going to cover the different stages, starting around, how, from my perspective, how I'm feeling about moving into being an adoption and foster parent and moving through expectations, and then, when the children move in and meeting them, assessment, all that kind of thing. And Rosie's going to be covering it all from her perspective, because obviously your experiences were very different, weren't they, Rosie?
Definitely. And I think my experiences are going to include a lot of feelings about what it felt like to be in those situations and what that looked like through the eyes of the child.
So we're going to start off with talking about before we adopt, before we meet our children, before we foster. So I was a social worker and I'd worked as a nursery nurse for many years, and I thought I really did know what I was talking about. So when the social workers came to assess me, I was very confident, actually. In fact, I remember going to the classes that they ran and offering my worldly advice about how to do reward charts. And funnily enough, the foster parents and adopters who were attending to assist at the training, they looked at me a bit blankly and sort of smiled a little bit, and I thought, oh, maybe they didn't hear me. So I was really confident that I could sort out anything. I thought I would adopt 2 little girls, and I'd got to that point because obviously I'd been through many years of infertility. I'd already been a foster parent, and it was the natural conclusion. I think the only thing that I found really difficult to handle was that if ever I shared with anyone that I couldn't have children, they would kind of just say, oh, well, you can always adopt, as if somehow you would literally just pop down to the shop and get a hamster or something, and there would be no issues with that. So the whole assessment process and that getting to assessment and thinking about, being a forever family, I think the only thing I would say, there's a motivation factor that's different when you foster and when you adopt. When I fostered, I didn't think of it in forever terms. I was thinking about it in helping children to heal and making them better. As an adopter, I think my motives were probably a bit more selfish. I wanted to be mummy and I wanted my forever family. So it was very exciting going through that process as an adopter. How about you, Rosie?
Well, for me, obviously, my story begins with me being born into my birth family, which for me was a very scary time. It wasn't a safe place, there weren't safe adults, and we rarely had nice experiences. I am the eldest of 7 children, which there are now 5 of us surviving, because through my journey with my birth family, there were some incidents around neglect and child cruelty that meant that 2 of my siblings lost their lives. So for me, it was a very scary experience. So when I was, and I won't go into that too much, because if you're watching this, you are probably a foster parent and an adopter, and you will find out that information yourself around where your child's come from. But to give you an idea, it wasn't a joyous time for me. There wasn't family picnics. There wasn't those times when the children would run home from school with their school report because I'd been well behaved. I often didn't go to school. So for me, I was removed from care at 6 years old. I was removed into care, at 6 years old. And I went into foster care with my sister, second down from me. And at that time, it was a really scary, nerve-wracking time, because as I've explained, I'd already lost siblings, and I wasn't aware when we went into care where my 3 younger siblings had gone, because we were separated, and nobody told me. Maybe they thought I wouldn't notice they had disappeared or something, I don't know, but no information was shared with me until I saw them again at a contact centre. And was relieved that they were obviously alive, but then could see that they were with some other adults, and I didn't know who these adults were. Were they safe? Were they looking after them? Were they cleaning them? Were they doing all of the things that they should be doing? So I was very watchful at this time, but obviously very pleased that I was with my siblings.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about expectations. And I think the next thing that happened with me was that obviously as we completed the assessment process, we started really thinking about the children that would be matched with us. And my former husband was very excited, and he felt he could manage anyone because he'd already raised 4 birth children. How hard could it be? I thought that I would like to have 2 little girls, but we ended up talking to the social worker about a group of 5 children. And I was a bit worried about that. I thought that might be tricky, but she said to me, well, these children, they won't stay together anyway. We're looking at you for the younger 3. My expectations around that were, you know, these children were very young. You know, the youngest, Charlie, she'd only just been born, and I felt, oh, you know, there won't be too many problems there. Obviously, I learned the hard way. That wasn't quite right. And Sophie and William were 2 and 3. And I felt in my naivety that there wouldn't be too many issues. And, you know, I've got good childcare experience, and with enough love, I could help the children and sort them out. So I was really excited about seeing photos of them, which I knew that was coming. And I constructed in my mind, you know, these family picnics and Christmases and being called mummy and how exciting it all was. And I was really looking forward to becoming the mum to these 3 little children. And for me, that was going to fulfill 15 years of hope. So I had a lot riding on it. How about you, Rosie?
Well, that sounds really lovely, and for me it really wasn't the same experience. So at that time, that was when the social worker was letting me know that we wouldn't be going back to our birth family, and that we would have to be looking at forever families. And to me at that point, I don't think I really wanted a family. The first family didn't look after me, so I don't want anyone to look after me. I was quite self-sufficient by that stage. We were also notified that we probably wouldn't be with our siblings and that they were going to be adopted. So for me, I was thinking about, well, what does that mean? You know, who's going to be looking after them? What does adopted mean? And, you know, will I see them again? Will they be part of my family? Will they remember me? Where will they go? So there's a lot of mixed emotions around that. And at this point, I was with my foster mum. I knew her. She was a lovely lady. She looked after us well. I liked her. I certainly didn't trust her. But what I got from her was a lot of control. And I think because of my trauma in my early life, I'd certainly learned to manipulate adults to get what I wanted out of situations. So I definitely was the child that was in control in that house. And if I wanted new shoes, I got them. If I wanted things I probably shouldn't have at that age, I got them. So for me, that felt quite a safe space because I was in control. I knew that I couldn't rely on an adult to meet my needs anymore. Therefore, I had to do it myself. When we were told that we would be looking for a forever family, I remember having to complete a book around what does families look like and what would you like your new mum to be and your new dad to be and this, that and the other. And I remember it being quite a torturous event because I only knew the parents I had. I didn't know that there were other parents out there that existed that looked after children. So it was really confusing for me to picture something nice, something different. So whilst for mum, that sounds like a really lovely time, for me, I definitely did not feel the excitement she felt, and my expectations of what was coming was a lot of dread and a lot of knowing that there's all these grown-ups around me that have to make decisions about my life and what's going on. And I was only 6, but I do know that I had to grow up very quickly and knew what I wanted. And obviously that wasn't the right thing, and I'm glad I wasn't in charge. But for me, I felt safe in charge.
So now we're going to talk about meeting. And when I met my children, it was a very surreal experience, because you know, or you hope, that these children are going to be in your lives forever. There's a lot of expectation and pressure on all sides. So because of the way that everyone was so worried about my 5 children and keeping them together and splitting them up and all that kind of thing, it was decided that I should only have the younger 3, adopt the younger 3, Sophie, William and Charlie. And the social worker came to the house and showed me the photos. I clearly remember that. She showed me the photos of the 3 of them. And when she showed me the photos, she then sat and stared at me like this. It's really difficult. Now, I've always felt that's a bit like the time when, I imagine, if you're pregnant, how a pregnant mother gazes at the scan photos of their baby, where they're kind of memorizing all their features and learning them. So although the social worker, I think, was expecting me to go, oh, I was just kind of like really looking at them and thinking about what they looked like, and in fact they were very close to the children I'd imagined. So there was a recognition for me. I was also aware though that Rosie and Katie were elsewhere in foster care and they were not part of the plan. So that felt quite odd, really. But as soon as I saw the children, I felt this connection to them. And I was riding high. I'd obviously decorated the bedrooms and had wonderful fun going off and, you know, finally doing the nursery for the baby who was coming. It was very happy time. And when I then went to meet the younger 3, I met them at the home where the foster parent was. And when I walked in, William looked at me and pointed at me and said, "Mummy," which was a very surreal moment. And it was like he had recognized me. And I found out later that he didn't really speak at all. So there was this instant connection between myself and the children. And although the introduction period was really busy and very intense, it was also probably one of the happiest times of my life. So how about you, Rosie?
Obviously at this moment I haven't met Mum. I haven't come into the story yet in the moving in. So what I'd like you to do is to think about how you would feel if you were approached by a total stranger who told you that they were going to be your new mum or your new dad. How would you feel in that situation? How would you feel if you're encouraged to cuddle these people? You've never met them before, but yet these people are going to be your new mum and dad, and your old parents are now not in the picture. Even though for me they were bad parents, they were still the only parents I knew. And finally, I'd like you to think about how you would feel about if you had no control over this. So when it was going to happen, who it would be, whether you're with your siblings or not, where you'd be living, even down to the culture of that family, the religion of that family, the new school you're going to be going to. All control had been taken away from you, but yet you still had to smile sweetly at these parents, because after all, you didn't want to not be adopted and remain in the care system. So it was a really uncomfortable feeling for me as a child in care at that time.
So we're now going to talk about moving in. When the children moved in with me, because of the circumstances, we had the 3 younger ones who joined the family first. Obviously, we never knew that Rosie and Katie were going to join the family later. So when they joined us, they were very immature. They were not meeting their developmental milestones. So it was like looking after twins of 1 and a 7-month-old baby. So all pre-verbal, all in nappies. So you can imagine how busy that was, but joyous. It was still a joyous time because I was full on being a mummy. You know, that was great. I liked that, even though it was busy. It was very busy. The next thing that happened though was that very soon after the children moved in with me, we were asked to go and meet Rosie and Katie. It was Katie's 5th birthday, and social services had organised for us to all meet up on her birthday at a contact centre, which I now realise is not a great idea, to be honest. So when we went to meet them, it was really bizarre because I was already feeling like mum to these 3 little children. And then when I met Rosie and Katie, they looked very different. Although they looked similar physically, they were very different in their speech, in their approaches. During the contact session, Rosie was very loud and controlling and belligerent. And I've got this on video, actually, the first contact session. And I remember thinking, wow, you know, she's really mature, because Rosie was 7 at that time. And Katie was very, very withdrawn and quiet. But it felt really odd because they were my children's siblings, full siblings. And it felt very strange that they weren't my children. But I knew at the time that social services were trying to find adopters for Rosie and Katie. And I just remember thinking it was all very bizarre, and watching the interactions between the children was strange as well. Rosie, how was that for you?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to read this extract from the Therapeutic Parenting Essentials, written by Mum, Sarah Dillon, Jane Mitchell. It's a book that gives a 360-degree view of therapeutic parenting and bringing up a child from trauma and what that looks like on both sides. This is called Gone, and it was based on me when I was 7 years old and what was happening for me at the time. They have moved William, Sophie and Charlie to a forever family. Well, I'm glad they told me finally, because when they cancelled our visit, I thought my birth father had got them. I didn't know if they were okay. I thought they might be dead. I won't believe they're okay until I see them. I don't know where they are. Where are they? They will miss me. I am their big sister. They need me to look after them. What if the forever family is horrible to them? They are bound to hurt them. Grown-ups always do. I'll kill them if they hurt them. What if they kill me though? Who are they? Where are they? And I think that gives a nice example of kind of, you know, I think that demonstrates I was kind of ready to attack. Mum's welcoming children into her family and feeling really excited, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm ready for your tricks. I'm watching you. I know this whole mum thing is, you know, a show. It's not going to last forever. So when you fail, I'm ready there to pick up the pieces and to look after my siblings properly, because after all, I'm the only one that can do it properly. So it's a really good paragraph, I think, just to put you in the shoes of the child, and hopefully will help you. And you can find more in the book like that.
So when we met Rosie in the contact centre, when I saw you being loud and controlling and belligerent, what was really going on there was you were very frightened.
As we know, children from trauma have different coping mechanisms. Some children might hide, some children might be shy. Mine was certainly to be loud and boisterous and to be in charge of the situation, so that I know that no adults was getting close to me, because to be honest, I wouldn't have wanted to get close to a child like that myself. So it's a good way of keeping everyone distant, so I'm safe as well and can look after my siblings from the evil adults.
Okay, we're going to be talking about what some people call the honeymoon period now. And I was lucky enough to experience 2 honeymoon periods. Well, more than that, when I think about my foster children as well that I had prior. So when the younger 3 moved in with me, as I mentioned before, you know, I was really happy. And I thought, you know, as well, we're really, really busy. But I felt that overall things were going really, really well. That changed within about a month to 6 weeks, when the children started feeling more settled. So the way that I saw those subtle changes with the younger 3 is that William was definitely a very scared little boy, so he's very compliant. What Sophie used to do, she used to do things that I call a hand grenade child, where she would kind of set up situations for me to notice the other children perhaps behaving badly. So she would be quietly in the corner going, oh, look at that. I didn't realise that. It took me 6 years to realise that was what was going on. So I just felt that she was really perfect and blended in really well. And obviously, you know, the baby, Charlie, 7 months old, what could go wrong there? Well, what happened was I didn't recognise her. I didn't really understand who she was. I didn't really feel that there was the same connection at that time because she didn't like me. And that sounds a bit bizarre to say, but that is the vibe that I got, and that was true. Obviously, we did overcome that, but at the time, you know, she was watchful. She was very watchful of me, and who can blame her, really? You know, she'd been in a foster with a lovely foster parent for the first 7 months of her life, and then who was I suddenly? So there was a watchfulness with her. So that was difficult. However, when I experienced the honeymoon period or the moving in time with Rosie and Katie, it's very different because I had the younger three and we decided that we needed to put the children back together. Now that's a whole story in itself. That was very, very difficult to convince social services that the children needed to be together. But with a lot of lobbying and a lot of report writing and a lot of arguing, we managed to achieve that. So I then started introductions with Rosie and Katie while still looking after the younger three children. And when Rosie and Katie moved in, it was a very different experience because they'd been longer in foster care. They'd been a year longer than the younger three. And Rosie was really defensive and didn't like me and was very cold and withdrawn and very, very clear that she didn't need any help for anything. Now, during the honeymoon period, though, I think some of that was masked a little bit, and she'd be really helpful. You know, sometimes she'd be really, really helpful, and she'd be kind of seeming to be very interested in all the things that I was doing, and she was never very far away from me and watching. And so I was quite confused by that because on the one hand, I had this child who I felt was very controlling and very angry and very distant. And on the other hand, I had a child who was being my new best friend, like my new best friend. So that was a difficult thing to make sense of. And I thought it would all be okay very quickly, but that wasn't the case. And with Katie, she was very withdrawn, very fearful, and constantly doing the fake smile this, which I call the grimace of fear now. At the time, I didn't know that. And I just thought she was a very smiley child, really. I didn't even realise what was going on. So, Rosie.
I think what's really good to remember with the honeymoon period is that it's a time that the child is watching the adults, finding out what's going on, seeing if you're going to keep your promises. So the children put on a mask to keep themselves safe because also they don't want to be hurt. So obviously during that time, I was very helpful because I had to check out to see if Sarah at that time, which is what I called her, she certainly wasn't going to be promoted to mum just yet, was, you know, up for the job because so far I hadn't met a grown-up that could. So yeah, I was helping her around the house because that was my way of stalking her, checking everything is right, you know, being in control really. And whilst it was done with a nice smile and compliance and, oh, can I help? It was really like, can you do it good enough? Because I'm not too sure you can. And I also remember this struggle that we had about mum trying to give me my childhood back, but I could not accept it because to me, I never really had a childhood. I never learnt to play. So she was presenting me with these opportunities for that. And it felt really alien to me because, you know, she would set up activities or buy nice toys or, you know, take us to places where we could be a child. And I think the role that I probably took was mum again. So I know that there was this constant battle between us around who is mum, who's in charge, and who's the ultimate safe person in the family. The other thing that I also remember, along with Katie and mum saying with her smiling sweetly, the grimace of fear, she calls it. Also, Katie would say to mum, to Sarah at the time, to my mum, that would you be my new mummy? And I know that that was a nice thing to hear. And I remember mum smiling and be like, of course I will. And I remember thinking, yeah, she said that to everyone, you silly lady. When will you learn? So there was definitely this, you know, I was watching and I was thinking a lot different to probably what mum thought I was thinking at the time. And obviously we're not in that situation anymore. But yeah, it was a very testing time for all of us, I know.
Okay, I hope you've enjoyed our first introduction to our story. Look out for part 2, which will be coming soon. You can read all about our journey in the Therapeutic Parenting Essentials, moving from trauma to trust. And in that, as Rosie said, we are doing a 360-degree view. So it's true, it's written from my perspective as it was at the time, not what I've learned since. The child's perspective, and also we've got the professional overview explaining what's happening and why. And it covers everything from literally thinking about adopting right through to the children growing up, all the behaviours we experienced and how we overcame it and how we got to where we are today. You can also, if you're an adopter or foster parent or special guardian, or you're just using therapeutic parenting and you don't know what to do or where to start, you can find all our resources at the Centre of Excellence in Child Trauma, which is www.coect.co.uk.